Greetings and salutations, friends and gamers of all stripes. My name is GM Dave. I am your man behind the screen, and welcome back to our third episode now. Yes, third episode of System Showcase for the Pathfinder playtest. Um, so we're not going to be going over the combat today. We're actually saving that video for tomorrow. I want to have a day where I've got a little bit more time available to myself to work on that video. And, well, tomorrow's the best day I've got. So tomorrow we're going to go over combat and all of that stuff, but for today I want to just talk a little bit about my experiences in the first arc of the playtest. We just completed the first arc today. We would have completed it last weekend, but a couple of our people had to leave, because it was a couple of the guys we're playing with are over in Europe. So right now it's 10 in the morning for me. We ended about half an hour ago, 40 minutes ago actually. And so they're playing in the middle of the night, basically. But the main thing I want to go over here today is the update to the Pathfinder playtest rulebook. Because as of the 10th, which is 5 days ago now, they released this update, version 1.2, to the rulebook, which comes with a few major changes, and also a couple of small inconsistencies that I want to cover. But before we go into that, let's just go ahead and say, basically, we finished the first arc of the playtest. We are playing the Doomsday Dawn playtest material. I don't want to go into any spoilers on that in case anyone here wants to play that for themselves, doesn't want to have anything about the story spoiled, even though there's not too much story to speak of in this one, at least from what I've been seeing. Since it's designed for the playtest, the different sections, it's a little odd. It seems like, the first section, you have this first set of characters you made. Then the second section, you make a new set of characters. Then the third part, I believe you're supposed to bring back your original characters. Then the next part is new characters. It's a little odd, but I kind of understand it. They want you to get experience with a bunch of different types of characters, get experience making characters of various levels, so on and so forth, because the levels jump between them. You start at level 1, then the next part, the characters you're making are level 4, then when you bring your original characters back, they're level 7. So the levels jump around. This is not like your typical adventure path. This isn't a situation like playing Carrion Crown or Rise of the Rune Lords or something else like that from the previous edition, where you've got your level 1 to 16 or 1 to 20 arc that you do across all your books, and you're going through all those levels. This is, you're play testing different portions of the game, different key areas, so it's going to jump around a bit. And, so for the early level playtest, we did the little dungeon run they have there. There's a few things that we missed based on the survey I took. A few chambers we never explored, things like that. Because the last thing we encountered was actually the boss of the dungeon, and he ended up killing us all. Now, this wasn't really due so much to an issue of imbalance within the combat. The combat does feel pretty well balanced, at least so far. It feels all right. The lethality is still pretty damn high, but a couple of the changes that were made to in this update, update 1.2, have had an effect on that. I'll go over those in a little bit. And we noticed that effect today because it was just one of those days where we as the players happened to all be rolling moderately okay to really low. For the most part, it was all of us rolling really low, while our GM was constantly rolling high and getting hits off on us, getting critical hits off on us, and we were playing in roll 20. And I mean, I've railed against roll 20 for that happening before too. It's like, I know it's supposed to be random, but I don't buy it. I don't buy it being 100% random the way it's supposed to be, because I've run into that problem with roll 20 so many times. Myself as a GM and playing with other GMs in their games, I've had that situation happen where one or two people will consistently for an entire session be rolling 15 or higher on the D20, while other people, I've actually had in one session that I played years ago when I was introducing this guy I knew to Pathfinder when he mentioned I just got the rule book, and I told him, hey, I'll teach you how to play. We were running another game with this guy and a couple of my friends that I'd set up, where in his character, literally every single roll he made that night on the roll 20 was an 8. Not every single roll he made. Well, every single roll he made with a d20, he rolled an 8. Literally every single roll through the entire 2-hour session we had, it was an 8. It never changed. No matter what he was rolling, it was an 8. And then on my end, with the enemies I had them going up against, and any traps and stuff, or anytime I had to roll an attack or something like that, I'm rolling always between 16 and 20. I never rolled lower than 16. And I see this happen all the time with roll 20. So I don't think it was an issue with the balance of the fight. It was more an issue with the makeup of our party, the fact that our GM was just rolling insanely well tonight, and also the fact that, as we were looking at the playtest, we were kind of looking at the way things were, we got to thinking, well, this seems like it was designed to be done in a single shot, so we made the active decision not to rest. Basically, doing that on purpose so that we could kind of push the limits of our character, push the limits of lethality with the playtest, see if it's like, okay, do you need to rest in this, or is this something that can be beaten without rest? I can't really say whether or not we got accurate data regarding this because, like I said, our GM was rolling insanely well. All of us as players, we were having insanely bad luck. So we got through we got through 2 fights tonight, 2 encounters. A group of goblins we fought again, and one of our players, our paladin, went down again. It was the second time in this adventure that he's gone down. And I went down in that fight too. And then, but we managed to beat them. Finally, we got past them just by virtue of the fact that their health was really low. So when we did hit, we pretty much one hit killed them. But we moved on, triggered a trap. Because I mean, this was really a fault of our own for the party makeup. We did not actually have someone there to look for traps. We really should have considered that, given that we've got it's playtest material. They're going to include traps so that they can test that. But we kept triggering traps. Just bad luck all around. I think we did actually. We were able to search for traps and we were able to attempt disarming them. But we were just having terrible luck with this kind of stuff. So we get to the final room. We're facing off against the boss of the dungeon, and it's going okay at the start, but we're all low health. I'm at half health. Our paladin was at 1 health the entire fight. Our sorcerer was at low health. Our monk was at low health. Everyone's at low health. And it was just a matter of time before this guy eventually got a hit off that downed someone, that moved on to someone else and downed them. And it just started going kind of all around the room until eventually he came around to me. I was the last one standing. And even though I was able to catch him with a tanglefoot bag and slow him down and was taking pot shots at him and doing my best to kite him around the room, unfortunately, with everyone being fallen over and dead and dealing with them making difficult terrain and then trying to lead the boss around and finding out that, entangling does not work like it used to. Entangling, it basically just heavily slows your movement speed now, as opposed to actually trapping you in place where you then have to break free. It's like, all right, so he's still able to chase me around, albeit considerably slower than I am, but this is a small room. There's not a lot of places I can go where he won't be able to just come and get me. And if I go back into the previous room, there's a gas trap that was activated that would then be dealing damage to me, and I'm at 1 health. It was just not the best situation. And there's the fact that I was constantly missing with my crossbow, so of course eventually he got up to me, he caught me, he killed me, and got the hits off that he needed. So yeah, the lethality is definitely there, but with all of that said, let's go ahead and we'll move into some of the changes here with the playtests now. There's it's an 8-page document, but there's only actually 7 pages worth of changes because this final page is all, you know, your open game license and legalism and all that stuff, things like that. But you know, a couple of the things that were changed is, you know, the core of the changes really come up here. The changes to signature skills is the biggest one. God damn it! Just a moment. Sorry about that brief interruption. Our old cat has been picking on our newer cat, and I just heard them starting to fight again, so I had to go break that up. But anyway, like I was saying, the real meat of the changes comes in the first 4 pages. Well, yeah, the first 4 pages here, leading into them the critical updates, which continue on through page 5. The other updates aren't quite as major, but you know, all of these are important to note. So the big one, the number one update is signature skills. Signature skills have now been completely removed from the game, which, in my opinion, is good. The more I looked into it, the signature skills idea was an interesting one, but it is not one that actually really works all that well. Because ultimately, it's like, okay, yeah, you get 3 or 4, however many based on your class, signature skills that really, like, give that core identity to your class, and, you know, those are the skills that you can eventually level up to legendary rank. But as players were looking into it, as the designers were looking into it, as I myself looked into it, reading through it, at a certain point, the signature skills became pointless anyway. Because after a certain point, there were different things you could take that were going to let you increase your other skills that weren't signature skills past expert rank anyway. So what was the point? There wasn't any. It ended up adding, all it did was ended up adding a layer of confusion that didn't need to be there because it became obsolete by, I want to say, like level 7 or 8 or so. That whole system, that whole method of calculating your skills just ends up pretty much becoming obsolete. So they axed it. Now, basically, any skill that you choose, any skill that you start as trained in as you're leveling up your character, you can eventually reach legendary rank in, that's good, I think. That allows you to, you know, kind of more effectively customize your character, and the signature skills are just kind of treated as, you know, suggested skills that work particularly well with your class. Now, the downside is that does, at least as far as the skills are concerned, that does do some minor harm to class identity. Not a big deal. Mainly the issue is it kind of removes that idea of, you know, your class skills, but that was also kind of a somewhat obsolete system anyway. 5e more or less removed that. You do still have the class skills that you pick from, but I mean the 5e skills, the skill tree in 5e is so small anyway. Heck, I think even with the reduced skill tree they have here, I think this one is still bigger overall than the one they have in 5e. We'll have to check on that, but you know. So yeah, class skills basically don't exist in this anymore, which it can be a little bit harmful to class identity where your skills are concerned, but if we're being honest here, generally speaking, your skills didn't really determine your class identity. It was the class abilities and all that stuff that revolved around those skills, or that oftentimes boosted those skills or altered your skills and your feats and all your other choices that you make. But apart from that, we've also got some changes to feats. So every class has gotten changes to their skills in the removal of signature skills. They've also each gained, I believe, yes, every class has gained at least one skill in which they are automatically trained from the start. Some of them get 2, depending on certain things. And some of them even get choices in it, others don't. Alchemists don't. Alchemists get trained in crafting automatically, and then are trained in a number of skills equal to 4 plus your intelligence modifier, going up from 2 plus your intelligence modifier that it was originally. Let's contrast that with the class I was looking to play as in the next session, which is kind of like the side story session where you play a different character, which is Ranger. They're trained in survival, but their number of trained skills actually went down from 6 plus their intelligence to 5. So yeah, you've got changes going in both directions. All in all, it's fine set of changes. You get some changes to the alchemist feats, like certain feats got removed. The 8th level feat Tricky Tinker for alchemist was removed. The 10th level feat Stalker Mutagen was changed, and this is kind of around here is sort of where I run into an issue with the way that this document is set up. Now, for my money, the sensible thing to do would be, if you're removing a feat or altering a feat, something like that, like in the case right here, with the Tricky Tinker that I mentioned, it's being removed. So they state, page 49, the Alchemist 8th level feats, remove the Tricky Tinker feat. Okay, easy. Page 50, in the Alchemist 10th level feats, in the Stalker Mutagen, remove the first sentence, and at the end of the second sentence add, and your body camouflages to match your surroundings, allowing you to hide and sneak even if you don't have cover or concealment. At the Alchemist 14th level feats, remove the Awakened Intellect feat. Okay. 1. Why couldn't you do that as 2 separate entries? Do an entry for each feat, instead of lumping it all just by the page and making us read this big section where we could miss the details. 2, why are you saying, oh, remove this sentence, then add this sentence after that sentence, and do this and that? You'll see that all throughout this document, where they will tell you, on page, page 67, under entry ZXY for this skill, remove sentence 3, and then add to the end of sentence 1 this segment, and then add to the beginning of sentence 4 this segment. Stop. Paizo, what are you doing? Simple solution. If you're changing that feat significantly, just put the new blurb in. Why do I have to sit there and remember to ignore the first sentence that's printed in the rulebook that I can't change the PDF of? I can't get into that PDF file and alter your text. So why do I have to remember to ignore the first sentence and then add a whole second part to the end of the second sentence for my Stalker Mutagen? Why couldn't you have just given me the entire updated blurb? It's a lot easier. Just keep the document open, reference it. Oh, Stalker Mutagen does this now. Instead, you're having us do this kind of stuff. Ranger feats, page 116. In the Ranger's 8th level feats, Hazard Finder. Change the last sentence to, you can find hazards that have a listed proficiency rank even if you aren't searching. Okay, that's a little bit more fair. Even so, why not just put the full blurb in here? Why are we expected to go and change these sentences somehow in documents that usually we're not going to be able to edit? Or if we have the printed version, what do you want us to do? Cross it out and write it in? I mean, come on. Throw us a bone here. Especially, too, because let's look at this. Skill Mastery, page 283. Change the Rogue's Archetype Skill Mastery feat to read the following. Skill Mastery, feat, level 8, Archetype, prerequisites, Rogue Dedication, expert in at least one skill, and trained in at least one skill. Increase your proficiency rank in one of your skills from expert to master, and in another one of your skills from trained to expert. Gain a skill feat associated with one of the skills you increase. Special, you can select this feat up to 5 times. Right there. That's how to do it for all of those things that you're telling us to cut sentences in and out for. Just give us the blurb. There is no reason to make us go through this mess of a document, especially because with the other changes, the critical updates, you punctuate it page by page. But look at this. Page 46 punctuation. Page 46 punctuation, because you're changing quick alchemy here and the formula book entry here. Why couldn't you do that for the stuff up here? Why couldn't you do that here? Why can't you just give us the new blurbs? There's no reason not to. You don't even necessarily have to sit there and do the layout like this. Just, you can do the bullet point. Give us the blurb. Tell us name of the feat and level, or name of the ability. It's a feat, it's ability. What level is it? What are your prerequisites? Give us the info. That's all you have to do. You made it so much more complicated than you need to. But anyway, moving on. The other big change is the update to the dying rules. Now, their last update, they say they introduced a new rule system for dying that ended up being kind of confusing, so they tried to simplify it. And basically, the way it works is like this. The way it used to work is if you were at 0 hit points, you were considered unconscious, you were considered dying. Now, you could be conscious or unconscious depending on the situation. And then if you were raised to 1 hit point or more, you could be raised above 0 hit points, still be unconscious, still be dying, still be conscious, and still be dying. It is a little bit of a confusing situation because there's a lot of little pieces to keep track of separately. So they simplified it. Now, if you're at 0 hit points, as soon as you hit 0 hit points, you're considered unconscious and dying. Dying functions the same as normal. You're going 4 steps down. Once you hit the 4th rank, like dying 4, the 4th rank of dying status, you are dead. Until then, you are unconscious and dying, or if you manage to stabilize, you're unconscious and stable. If you get taken up to 1 hit point or higher, though, you are conscious again, you are no longer dying, and instead, for that first round that you are up, your stacks of dying, again, either 1, 2, or 3, add up to that many applications of the slowed ability, of being the slowed condition. I believe it's the slowed condition. Let me double check here. Because they changed a lot of the names of the conditions. I want to make sure that I have that correct. So, give me just one moment here. Bear with me. I'm going to pause the video here briefly and find that segment again so I don't waste your time. Bear with me one moment. Alright, I'm back. So, yes. When you lose the dying condition, if you gain 1 hit point, that's all it takes. You gain 1 hit point. You go from 0 to 1. And then anything above that as well. You lose the dying condition. You are conscious again. But for every stack of dying you have, you gain slowed of that rank for that round. So, slowing, I believe, per each point reduces your movement speed by 5, if my memory serves me correctly. We're just going to say it is, because I believe it's hampered is what lowers it considerably more. Slowing lowers your movement speed by 5 per tick. So, if you have 3 stacks of dying, you're 1 stack away from being killed, from actually being dead, and you get brought back up to 1 hit point. You're conscious again. You're no longer dying, but you have 3 stacks of being slowed, which means you move 15 feet slower in that round. So, a pretty sensible way of having that work. It's a lot simpler. It's a lot easier to understand. But I did note that there's an impact on the lethality here. And I'm sure those of you who are a little experienced with 5e already see it. Because now, where you could not before do the death hopping, or I can't remember what they called it, but basically where you get knocked to 0, you're dying, you get brought back, you're living, you get knocked down, you're dying, you're brought back, you're living. That wasn't doable with the previous system, which as overcomplicated as it did end up being, it was a bit confusing. There was a lot of little variables to keep track of, and it did overcomplicate the system. This is a better system in the sense that it's simpler. It's very easy to understand. Snap, you do it, you're done. You got 1 hit point, you're alive. You're not dying. You got 0, you're unconscious and dying unless you stabilize or are given 1 hit point. Simple as that. If you have dying stacks, when you get up to 1 hit point, those stacks transfer into stacks of slowed for 1 round. Simple. Easy to understand. Quick. The downside. You can now pretty much do, as long as you have an ability that allows you to do so, you can pretty much do what healers in 5th edition do with Healing Word. And just pop heal on someone, bring them back. They dropped again, pop heal, bring them back. They drop again, pop heal, bring them back. Keep getting them back into the fight. That up and down actually did happen in this session with a couple of the characters. Our sorcerer, in particular, it happened with him. He got dropped. I administered an elixir of life to him. He was back up. Of course, I rolled a 1 on it, so, yay me. Then, next round, he gets dropped again, uses a hero point to do his heroic recovery ability, comes back up. Down, up, down, up, down, up. The problem is back. So that's unfortunate. Other than that, the main issue seems to be that looking at the critical update section, the other update section, all of this, Doomsday Dawn updates, I can't say for sure, but it seems like, based on how some of these things read, based on, hi Nikki, you can't see her, but she's standing right in front of my screen now, which is making it very difficult for me. Hey you, her tail's probably going to switch right in front of the camera soon. See your ear? There you are. Hey you. Yeah. There are some inconsistencies between these segments, critical updates and beyond, where everything's bullet pointed, and some of the information that comes early on. I noticed that this morning when I was updating my alchemist, I was going through, taking the information that it gave me on the first page, and I figured, you know what? These guys said they're going to be a couple of these guys said they're going to be 10 minutes late because they got stuff they're dealing with. Let me go ahead, I'll just read through this document, familiarize myself with it, familiarize myself at least a little bit with these different changes so that I hopefully won't have to bounce back here and keep referencing it over and over. And as I was doing so, I noticed this. Right here, page 45. Now, remember what I was saying earlier on about how the alchemist now gets 4 plus their intelligence modifier skill points up from 2? Well, here's where the confusion comes. It's highlighted here. You guys should all be able to read it, but I'll read it aloud for you anyway. Excuse me, Nikki. In the alchemist proficiency sections, in skills, change 2 to 3. In advanced alchemy, in the 3rd sentence, remove the word common. So, again, with this, just remove this word, just do this, just do that. Okay, with this stuff, I can kind of understand it more. These are big sections in the book with the feats. That's not acceptable. But, we have some serious confusion here. Okay, baby. Excuse me. We have some serious confusion here because as I'm reading along, I come to this, and I'm like, wait a minute. Up here, page 1. Page 1. It tells me 4 plus my intelligence modifier. 4 plus my intelligence modifier. But down here, page 5, page 4. Page 4, it's 3 plus. Just talked with the GM. I said, dude, which one is it? Do you know? Well, let me check. We checked the forums, checked online. No one could give us an answer. Nobody had asked about it because I don't think anybody noticed it. And that includes Paizo. Paizo didn't notice their own screw-up. And there's not a lot of inconsistencies like that in here, but there's a handful of them. And I think, I can't say for sure, but I think a lot of these critical updates and all this stuff, a lot of these bullet-pointed materials here were from prior updates, prior suggestions, and it seems like they were just kind of tacked onto the end of this. I don't know for sure, but that's what it seems like. So, long story short, here's what I'm getting at. in terms of the gameplay, the mechanics, in terms of some of the changes to the classes, and in terms of the core changes to the game with this document, removing signature skills, changing your dying rules. All in all, I'm all right with Pathfinder 2. It's fine. It's fun. I enjoy it enough. I'd give it, you know, I'd say it's fair. It's a fair game in its current state. Obviously, it's still being worked on. It's going to be a little bit before it's finished. Changes are going to continue to be made. But with the inconsistencies that were present in the or in the original playtest document that I found, and now noticing again inconsistencies in their own errata document, Paizo, what are you doing? Come on. Get your editors on this shit. Pay attention to what you got here. Because all this is doing, like, you're lucky no one, like, I guarantee the only reason no one has said anything about this is because they probably just didn't happen to notice. Scrolling through it, it was probably like, most people probably skimmed over a lot of these bullet points and just went specifically to the stuff that they needed. I went through, like, before the game started, I got through all of the critical updates, was looking at all of them. And this was the thing that stood out the most egregious to me, just because I had just gotten done editing my character at that point. When I saw this, I'm like, well, shit, now I don't know if my skills are actually correct or not. We just went ahead and we said it's the 4 points for the Alchemist, not the 3, because, that's what comes first in the document. That seems to be the most up-to-date stuff. But, yeah, Paizo, they need to get on getting this stuff edited correctly. They need to make sure that the information they got in their documents is correct and uniform, because so far, this is far from the first time I've noticed in these documents that there are mistakes. There are screw-ups where you either forgot to include something important, or you've got contradictory information about the exact same thing. So that for me, that has been a pretty big problem with this playtest so far. Is there isn't a lot, but every now and then I'm seeing bits of information that are contradictory, bits of information that are unclear. So Paizo really has to work on getting that stuff fixed. But all in all, so far, again, I'm still enjoying the playtest so far. I'm still enjoying the way Pathfinder 2 functions and feels. Again, we just finished the level 1 portion still. So, I'm reserving still some judgment on the game and the function of it and everything for the later levels. Once we start moving on to the different parts of the playtest, once we're able to, like, I'm hoping that I'll get a chance to maybe squeeze out a different character at some point, because I know I'm not going to be able to join for the side story part that's happening next week, the level 4 portion, which is done with a different character, because I have to work that day, which kind of sucks. But, it happens. But as I get up in level with my Alchemist, we're probably gonna find some way to continue with the same characters somehow, because fuck it, this isn't society play. Yeah, we got TPK'd, but our goal here is to test this stuff. And I want to see how the Alchemist with their new stuff functions at higher levels. I really want to. Because, as I've mentioned before, Alchemist is my favorite Pathfinder class. So, I want to get a feel for how the game functions, how the Alchemist functions, how these changes affect everything. And that's really going to help me refine my opinion. So, again, so far, opinion is the game itself, at least at the early levels, it feels fine. The lethality seems to be kind of high, even though that has been changed slightly with the fact that you can leapfrog between living and dead now. With that 1 HP means you're not dying thing anymore. Granted, there is a downside, but the 15, like the stack slowing you by 5 feet per stack of dying isn't a huge downside. That's very easy to work around. So, there's that. But the inconsistencies I see in the documents, along with like certain other vagaries or things that should be key information, that should be noted clearly, being buried sometimes in walls of text occasionally. That's something that I think Paizo really needs to work on if they want this document to read well, if they want the playtest to be, easy to reference. And I will say, so far, in terms of reference to, that's another big thing. But I'm starting already to see some small problems coming up. Nothing major so far, but I am seeing some issues coming up here and there. We'll see if they are exacerbated going forward or if it's nothing really to be worried about. So that's all I've got for you today, friends and gamers. This video ended up being a little bit longer than I wanted, but we needed to I felt like it was important to kind of dig into this, point out the fact that there are a little bit of issues with the documents themselves. We will be going over combat tomorrow, as I promised, and I'm going to work very hard on making sure that that's a concise, easy to digest video. I did not want this one to end up as long as it is, but with certain distractions coming up, that kind of slowed things down. So with all that said, friends and gamers, as usual, my name is GM Dave, and I am your man behind the screen. If you like what I do and you would like to see more, please feel free to subscribe and click that bell notification button for regular notifications. More important than that, if you want to be regularly notified, make sure you follow me on social media. You can find links for all that in the description down below, as well as a link to my Patreon page if you enjoy my work well enough to support me financially. I appreciate every donation I can get, but even more than that, I appreciate the fact that you like to spend your time here watching my videos with me today. If you like this video, leave it a like, and please tell me what your thoughts are. Have you played the Pathfinder 2 playtest yet? If so, what are your thoughts on it? If you haven't, what are your impressions so far based on the things that you've read and the things that you've seen? Is it something you would consider at least trying? I mean, currently the playtest material is free. As far as I can tell, there's not really a reason not to at least give it a shot to see if it feels how you think it's going to feel. Of course, there's going to be strong opinions either way, but we'll see how it goes. And again, expect that video on combat tomorrow, nice and concise, no longer than 15 minutes. With all of that said, again, my name is GM Dave. I am your man behind the screen, and dear friends and gamers of all stripes, as usual, it is my sincere hope that you roll high, roleplay well, and game on.